What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Okay, so after the Wall Street Journal article part two released, which coincidentally happened at the same time that the United States government bombed three nuclear facilities from the country of Iran. Interesting timing, folks. I did see something that I want to talk about today because it has to do with both the potential for an operation similar to Mockingbird taking place, which embeds people from the media who are in some way or another related to people from government entities that presumably could be part of the secret keeping of UFOs. And that, now that you think about it, it's like a genius way to leave everything in the family so you can trust when you're giving information to people that you want put out against the UFO topic. And the first time we saw this happening in recent years, because I would guess that it's been happening for a while, is when David Grusch came out and there was an article on the Intercept which released David Grush's medical records. And they talked about the PTSD that he was suffering because a friend of his passed away and he had mental problems when that happened. But the way that this article portrayed Grush was that he was unstable, and they related it to the reason why he is talking about UFOs, which is not the case at all. Those two are separate issues. And it was really a low blow talking about someone's PTSD just to smear them. And that's exactly what happened. And the way it happened is that journalist Ken Klippenstein, he even said it on the show Breaking Points, which had him on right after he wrote the article. And when they asked him point blank, how did he get the FOIA where that information was kept, he said that it was a tip from somebody in the government. And then when people started digging a little more into Klippenstein himself, they realized that he had a conflict of interest. And surprise, surprise, the first indication of this is this tweet right here. Ken is congratulating his father, Stephen Klippenstein, who, if you guys did not know, is part of the Department of Energy. Specifically, the father of former Intercept journalist Ken Klippenstein is a theoretical chemist working for the DOE at Argonne National Laboratory, which is funded by the U.S. Department of Energy, Office of Science, Basic Energy Sciences. Stephen Klippenstein. Why do I mention this? You ask. I will tell you why. Because, and I'm just gonna give a big shout out to Missile Man on X, who's been on the show. He's a friend of the show. He's been on the show twice. I hope I can have him soon again. But he just wanted to ask to a question of one of the Wall Street Journal writers who wrote this two-part piece against the UFO topic and did it without citing any sources. And it seems like they wrote it with just information from Kirkpatrick and Arrow. And although they did speak to a bunch of different people who are related to the topic, who have been expressing firsthand knowledge and firsthand experience on the topic, it's like they just talked to them just to say they did, and then they wrote whatever they wanted. And Missile Man here is pointing out another conflict of interest, just like the one from Ken Klippenstein. Only this time it's from Wall Street Journal writer Aruna Viswanatha. That's her name, Aruna Viswanatha. Missile Man says, rabbit hole. I too start with just one question. What sort of conversations do the Viswanatha sisters have over family dinner about national security finance, prosecutions, when one writes CIA puff pieces for Reuters, followed by UFO debunks for the Wall Street Journal, and the other is a Rising Star senior director for global disputes and litigation at the legacy contractor and the journalist's husband, Yoyep Kundu, is a PhD theoretical physicist at MIT and was, and I quote, program examiner at the White House Office of Management and Budget, covering NSF, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, and the Department of Energy. You can't make this stuff up. And doesn't have a publication since 2005, but is referenced and cited all over qubit, quantum entanglement, cold phase superconducting, quark matter, and heterostructured quantum materials papers? Excellent question, Missile Man. And here is one of the Viswanatha sisters who is at Northrop Grumman. And this is Aruna, her sister, who wrote the article at the Wall Street Journal. So that's pretty wild. And it's another conflict of interest that we are finding here. And if you want to read those two articles, be my guest. I would not pay to read any of that because it is clearly a biased misinformation article attempting to debunk everything that people who have been working on this for decades have been trying to put out to the public, because that is what happened to them. And it's just a question that I keep asking myself, and I keep going to that conversation that I had with Danny Sheehan when I asked him if he believed that Project Mockingbird was still ongoing. Do you think Operation Mockingbird, for example, didn't actually end and they just changed the name? What do you do when that comes to you? How do you identify what's misinformation and disinformation?
Well, that's a great question, but they did not stop the Project Mockingbird. The fact that it got revealed, and that they during the church committee hearings back in 75 and 76, at that time they identified 42 specific, deeply embedded CIA national security people inside the major media, and that there's still those kind of people there. They have them now as their national security reporters. They call them that. They've got an official name for them, and that gives them liaison into the national security information, so that they can get good sources. But the cost of that compromise is that they agree not to reveal certain kind of things. So they're participating in maintaining the national security state.
I believe that this could be one of the versions of Project Mockingbird, but they try to tighten it up by, as I said earlier, keeping it in the family. Because if you want to put out information to a mainstream media outlet, you're going to want to do it with someone you completely and absolutely trust. And it's a better idea to give it to someone who is already part of your family, just like Kenny Klippenstein did, and just like Miss Viswanatha did with her sister, apparently. So I'm not saying that this is exactly the case. I'm just telling you this is a very interesting correlation that people need to look at more. And whenever you find or see a journalist from a mainstream media outlet or somebody from NASA who is giving other prosaic explanations to UFOs, you need to look at their past and you need to look at a possible conflict of interest. Because if you find one, it's just too many coincidences to not correlate it to this. So now we have this. Another example is Mr. Spergel from NASA, who has talking points that are very similar to Howard Mansell, who is famous for the alleged Mansell conspiracy, where he erased the astronomical plates that pictured an object that wasn't a star. And he came in to Harvard Astronomy Laboratory as a director and erased those plates and stopped the program for a chunk of time. Nobody could ever take any more photographies from that period of time that Mansell was there. And it's another conflict of interest. I do think that Mr. Spergel and other people from the mainstream academia and scientific circuits are also stating these talking points that have existed for decades debunking anything related to UFOs or UAP. And I think it's this is just a personal opinion. I think this is a concerted effort that when Mockingbird was discovered, they just had to reimagine the whole operation, rename it, replan it, tighten it up, arrange or fix the details that made them get discovered in the first place. And yeah, one of those is to just keep it in the family. I keep saying it makes all the sense in the world that they've done it this way. That way, the leaks of information will be even more minimal than they were before. And it just secures that whatever they want to put out goes out the way they intended it to. And it's a brilliant move. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, eventually people were going to find out, just like Missile Man did here. And just like people found out when Ken Klippenstein did his hit piece against David Grusch. Just follow the money or follow the bloodline in this case, I guess. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments about this. What do you think about the potential conflict of interest of Miss Aruna Viswanatha and the other conflict of interest that was already found on Ken Klippenstein back when he did that Grusch hit piece? Let me know. And this is a great way to make people just aware of what they can start looking for whenever pieces like these come out in the public. There's always a potential conflict of interest and people involved. You just got to look for it very carefully, and you will most certainly find one. Almost always, I would say, because this is the pattern that we have to follow. But let me know what you think. If you like the content you see, I'm going to ask you to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. That's all you need to do to help us, and it is what helps us the most. But if you want to support us in any other way, there's a few links down there. You can become a member on YouTube. You can also support us through KGRA. Anything you choose to do is always appreciated, so thank you. That's it for me today on this video, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, stay curious and inquisitive like Missile Man. Always. Bye.